Hi there, everyone. It's Kara Clareman from Plug and Drive. Welcome to the Used EV seminar. Those of you already looking into electric vehicles, you know well the reason that we are looking at EVs at all. Why do so many countries around the world even care about EVs? And this is the main reason. This slide kind of tells an important story, which is that transportation is the largest emitting sector. Definitely in Ontario, it's the largest, and in many provinces across Canada, it's number one or number two. And in most countries, actually, around the world, it's number one or number two. So the point being that you really can't tackle your climate change goals as a country or a city. You really can't hit those goals if you don't tackle transportation. And of course, electric vehicles are a really great opportunity to reduce emissions from transportation, especially in jurisdictions that have relatively clean electricity, or what we call a low emitting grid. And of course, here in Ontario, we have a very low emitting grid. We have a grid that's based primarily on nuclear and hydroelectric power, and then a little bit of renewables and a little bit of natural gas. Interestingly, in Ontario, we used to have a lot of coal on the grid, and as we shut down that coal, of course, our grid became even cleaner, and especially at night. If you think about fossil fuel electricity, it tends to run at the peak time when it's the last on and first off. It's when we really need peaking capability in the province. So for example, at the peak of the day when all the buildings are running, you would run natural gas, or we used to run coal at that time. And so at night, when we tend to have everything shut off, so we don't have a huge demand for electricity, it's almost all nuclear, hydro, and a little bit of wind. So it's a very low GHG emitting grid at night. And that's what makes EVs such a good match for Ontario's grid, because most of the time people are going to plug in their vehicles when they're at home at night. And so you're going to plug into that clean electricity at night. And also, not only are you going to take a huge bite out of the emissions of transportation, but you're also actually doing your province an economic favor, because typically we have this surplus of electricity on the grid at night when everything is turned off. We really can't store much electricity here in Ontario, so we tend to dump it. We dump it into New York State and into Quebec at a loss most every night. And so if we can get more and more people to plug in electric cars at night, we're actually not only dropping the emissions significantly, but you're also actually buying electricity that was otherwise being dumped or sold at a negative price. So it's a winner both for the environment and the economy. And it's a winner not just for the provincial economy, but for your own economy, because of course EVs are much cheaper to run than gas. And the main reason for that is that the fuel or the electricity is much cheaper than gas, even at these crazy low gas prices we're seeing now, which I think most of us would agree probably won't last. Those prices are still for electricity much, much less than gas. And so, great opportunity for you not only to reduce your emissions, but also save money. The other reason you save money is because of maintenance. Maintenance in an electric car is much, much less. And the reason for that is EVs have very few moving parts. So you have a situation where there are something in the order of 20 to 30 moving parts in an electric car, and something in the area of 1,800 to 2,000 moving parts in a gas car. So, of course, a lot more things to break, and so a lot more repairs. And so, for those reasons, electric cars save you money. The other point we're trying to make on this slide is that EVs go the distance. You can see that most EVs on the market now can get as much as even 400, 500 kilometers per charge. And so you have certainly a lot less concerns around range and around your ability, how frequently you might need to plug them in. Most Canadians are actually only plugging their car in once or twice a week, because most of us only drive about 30 to 50 kilometers a day. So, for all these reasons, it's very convenient and not what a lot of people imagine as sort of some kind of hassle to plug in your car. An added benefit that I've noticed during this COVID-19 is that I plug my car in at home, so I never have to go to a gas station. I don't have to touch something that other people are touching. I'm just using my home station, and it's only me and my family that use it. So, another plus that actually I never considered. Of course, we've already talked about the emission reduction, which is really incredible, at least 90% here in Ontario. That would be the case in British Columbia, in Quebec, in Manitoba, where they have also very low emitting grids. And even in places like Alberta and Saskatchewan, where we do have some coal running on the grid, you still get about a 20 to 30% emission reduction in those provinces. And the reason is because their grid isn't 100% fossil fuel, it's just partially fossil fuel. And the other reason is a coal plant, a large coal plant tends to still be more efficient than a small internal combustion engine. And finally, the last benefit I want to talk about is the makes and models that are available. Certainly, most people have heard of Tesla, and Tesla gets a lot of media attention, but that has also led people to think that electric cars are really expensive. And always want to remind people, and you folks who are looking at used already know that EVs come in all shapes and sizes. There are lots of makes and models available. Even on the new market, there's more than 40 different makes and models available, growing exponentially. In fact, in 18 months to 2 years, we'll see upwards of 100 different makes and models on the market at that time. So really exciting time to be looking at electric vehicles. And just for 2 minutes on Plug and Drive and who we are, you've found us for this seminar, so you probably know a little bit about us. I will not spend a lot of time. This is us in front of our EV Discovery Center in the Greater Toronto Area. If you happen to live near or you're making a trip to Toronto, please do visit us at the EV Discovery Center. Of course, we're closed right now, but we hope to be open again soon, and we will create an environment where physical distancing is possible, and we still want to get you in for test drives if possible. So this center has been a real hit with the general public. The idea of it is to allow people to test drive all the makes and models of EV in a no pressure, no sales environment. And we've been really, really happy with the turnout we've had to the EVDC, about 20,000 visitors a year. And of course, our main focus has been education, but we work on a number of files. We help with some policy work, we do some research, but I would say 70 to 80% of what we do is outreach, which is to help consumers, doing everything from in-person presentations, test drives, both on the road and at our center, and really just helping the consumer get all the information they need to make the switch. So that's our big focus. And we love to partner with different organizations that are going to help us do that. So even in these difficult times, we're trying to continue to talk to people about the benefits of EV, and we really do believe strongly that when we do open up, it should be a green recovery. So we're so excited that so many of you are looking at used EV as your next vehicle, and you'll be a big contributor to that change, because once people switch to EVs, they almost never, ever, ever switch back. There's so many benefits and enjoyment even just of driving that most people stick with it. Okay, so we're going to spend the rest of this time talking about used EVs and why they make sense for so many vehicle buyers. We did a survey of both EV owners and gas car owners in the Greater Toronto Area. We talked to about 200 EV owners and about 1,000 gas car owners. And we asked them what was their motivation to buy. So the EV owners said, the highest percentage of people said that the reason they chose their EV was for the environmental benefit. Interestingly, when we asked gas car owners why they did not choose an EV, they said by a wide margin that it was that the EV was too expensive. We expected them to say, oh, it's because they don't get enough range. But that was well down the list, something like, it was the next item that people chose, but it was something like 12, 13%. So really, too expensive was a huge, huge factor in people's decision. And again, this was a few years ago now, 2017, when we did this survey. But I think this would hold true today. I think people still believe EVs are too expensive, mostly because they haven't thought of buying used. And again, they don't know all the makes and models. So I think a lot of it is based on misinformation. But there is, of course, always a grain of truth to what people believe. And there are some very expensive EVs. And of course, the first EVs were more expensive than the equivalent gas car. So it's understandable that people have that impression. But now that used EVs have become more and more available on the market, it's an exciting time to look at a used EV as an option. And now we're going to talk a little bit about choosing the right EV for you. And we're talk about both fully electric EVs and plug-in hybrids. We have some just basic information, rule of thumb for figuring out which type of vehicle might make the most sense for you. So you have to consider your driving range and your typical. And when I talk about this, I'm talking about your typical driving that you're doing most days, not to pick the one time or two times a year that you take a long trip. So if 98% of the time you're driving less than 100 kilometers a day, you're doing a back and forth commute, or for example, you're a two-car family and you have another gas vehicle, those are good reasons to choose a fully electric vehicle, because your range is going to fall in the range of any full EV on the market. And you have that other gas car, let's say you do want to take a long trip somewhere. So those are good reasons to choose a fully electric. Also, people tend to choose fully electric if they have access to an outlet, whether that means you have your own home plug or you have a nearby public plug that you can use regularly. Those are good reasons, again, to consider full electric. And of course, you save more money with full electric than you do with a plug-in hybrid, because you just have only the electric to deal with and you don't have also all the parts that come along with gas. So for those reasons, it might make sense, if these are sort of fit your life, that you would choose a fully electric vehicle as opposed to a plug-in hybrid. On the other hand, a plug-in hybrid might make sense for you depending on your lifestyle. Now, we're always very supportive of people who want to make a move in the electric direction, but they can't quite get their mind around a full electric. So if you're a one-car family, for example, and it's going to be your only car and it's going to be the one that does the road trip and does the trips to grandma's house and does everything, and it's frequent enough that you're doing these trips, that you might want to consider a plug-in hybrid. Or if, for example, you have a very long commute, it might just be too nerve-wracking for you to go fully electric. A plug-in hybrid might make sense. The third reason we find people might choose a plug-in hybrid rather than a full electric is if you don't have an easy access to charging. Some people who live in a multi-unit residential building, a condo or an apartment, it's challenging at times to get your own plug. And in that case, sometimes there might be times when you can't charge at home and you might just want the comfort of having that gas backup. So these are all really good reasons to consider plug-in hybrid. So there are a number of things you have to consider when you're buying an EV, and even more so when you're choosing a used EV. And the question I would say we get the most about used is, do I need to be worried about the remaining battery life? And it is something smart to be concerned about, but there are ways to give yourself comfort that you are ready for this battery and that this battery is going to not cause you issues. So what I would recommend, for example, is that you take a look at the manufacturer's warranty, because when you look at that, depending on what year the vehicle is that you're looking at, you'll see that most of the manufacturers offer about an 8-year, some even 10 years warranty, or 160 to 200,000 kilometer warranty. So of course you do have to check your, the manual, or if you're looking at used, you might want to just go online and figure out which warranty applies. So this is really worth looking at. So for example, let's say you're looking at a 2015 Nissan Leaf, you might be able to tell, okay, see how much life is left in the battery, but you might also say, hey, I've got still another 3 years left on my warranty, 4 years left on my warranty. And so I'm feeling confident that even though I'm not 100% sure, if I do have a problem with my battery, I'm going to be able to go back to the manufacturer and be covered. So really good to check that out. Also, you can get a test done by a EV certified dealer to check on the health of that battery. And I would strongly recommend that you do that with a used EV, just to give yourself the comfort and the knowledge that the battery is in good shape. Now, our experience has been that the used EV batteries are lasting extremely well, but you never know. It could have been driven very hard, it could be a dud. So you do need to check it, but our experience has been that these batteries are doing well in the secondary market and we've not heard a lot of problems. If it was me, for sure, I would check it anyway. And of course, I think you should be, when you're asking your dealer to check it, they can verify what's the driving range or the full, what are your, how many kilometers should you get on a very full charge in comparison to what the manufacturer claims you would get for a new vehicle. And that way you can have comfort that your typical commute will be well within the driving range of that vehicle. And of course, you want to think about winter, because in winter you are going to get reduced range. So you want to know that this vehicle is going to meet your needs whenever, if you're driving in February or you're driving in July. So you'll want to double check that. Okay. All the EVs on the market come with their own cord set. And that's the picture on the left that you see here. It's what we call a 110 cord set. So 110 means a 110 plug. That's the same kind of plug as you plug your phone or computer into at home, just a wall socket. So these cars come with this cord set. You plug it into a 110 outlet, maybe just outside your house, and you can charge the car. So you're ready to go even if you don't have a home charger. Now, the thing to remember about charging on 110 is it's going to be really slow. So that's the only reason why you might upgrade to a level 2 charger. Now, I can tell you, if you're choosing a used plug-in hybrid like a Chevy Volt or Ford C-Max or something like that, those batteries are not that large. And so a 110 plug might be plenty for you. And even though it's slow, it might not matter. So I do recommend that you give it a shot before you decide rush into buying a level 2 charger. You might not even need it. I had a 2011 Nissan Leaf. That was my first EV. And I can tell you, for the first couple of months I had it, I charged it on 110. Yeah, it took all night. It took, if I was fully empty, it took all night. But a lot of the times you're not pulling up fully empty. You're half full or whatever. So, I was fine. I would plug in overnight. What did I care if it took all night? So for me, it was fine. Now, it was our only car, and I did decide to upgrade to a level 2 because there were times where I would come home and then need to go out again. So for me, I did want that level 2 charger, which is like a dryer plug, and it can charge your car, twice as fast. So for some people, it's really worth it. For me, it was worth it, but it's not a requirement. And you can see on the right side, that's what the charging port looks like in a CCS type of vehicle. Those tend to be the American vehicles and the European vehicles. And that's the kind of charging port that you use for charging on level 3. The top little circle is your level 2 charger wand. And then for level 3, it takes up this whole ports, the top circle and the bottom sort of oval shape. You're going to use that when you're charging on a quick DC quick charger, which tends to be those kind of big chargers you might see on a highway. You're going to want to look at this port and look at your cord set and make sure everything is working. You want to try it, make sure you plug it in and it's working. Maybe go to a level 3 station, make sure it's working. I would want to check all these things to make sure they're functional, and definitely that you have this cord set in the trunk, because that's about 700 bucks. So you want to make sure the car comes with that. That's supposed to be in the trunk of every EV. Okay, so how are you going to find your used EVs? You are going to find it on a whole bunch of ways. There's lots of options for looking for a used EV. These are just some of the sites. Lots of folks that have been working with us have been finding them on Auto Trader and Kijiji. Those tend to be the most popular ones. We're also seeing them on some smaller, newer sites that you see here. One of the great opportunities to choose an EV is through something called Evnet. You can find an EV that you specifically are looking for. So for example, if you have in your mind that you want to find a used 2015 BMW i3 and you want certain things and you can't find it, we do have these folks. You can just email us at mycustomev@pluganddrive.ca. You can email these folks, and we have this relationship with Evnet, and they actually will go out and find you the vehicle that you are looking for. So it's a great way to find the EV if you have something very specific in mind. I see that we have a few questions coming in. I'm going to get to a few of them, and then I'm going to put some of them at the end. Someone is asking, is there a charger between level 1 and level 2? I live off the grid. Well, actually, some of the level 2 chargers can charge at a lower amperage. So that's an option for you. If you look at chargemycar.ca, which is a subsite of Plug and Drive, it'll show you all the different makes and model of charger, and some of them are 30 amps and some can be toned down to like 20 amps, which is sort of in between a level 1 and level 2. So that might be an option for you. Also, a question about battery. Will charging to full deplete the battery health? Actually, it doesn't if you do it on level 1 or level 2. Our understanding, and I'm not an expert on this, is that it doesn't. It's not like those old nickel cadmium batteries where your battery would get a pattern. If you only charged it 3/4, then it would only charge 3/4 or whatever. We've not heard a lot about people having difficulty with if they fully deplete and then causes any harm. What we have seen though is that some vehicles will have fewer charging cycles if you always use a level 3 charger, the very fast chargers. And actually, a lot of the different vehicles in the manual, it'll tell you the ideal amounts to charge. So for example, my vehicle, they tell me try not to go below 20% and only charge to 80%. Try to keep it in that 20 to 80 all the time. Of course, if you're going on a road trip, you can go to the 100. But if you're not and it doesn't matter for you, then it's good to keep it in that range. Now, that was specific to my vehicle, so you definitely want to check that in the manual. And just now we are talking about charging. I already sort of explained it, but just to give you the visual. So as I mentioned, level 1 is a 110 outlet, gets you about 8 kilometers of driving in an hour. Level 2 is like a dryer or stove plug. You buy the charger and basically attach it to that outlet. We recommend you get an electrician to do it because it does need Electrical Safety Authority approval. If you do DIY it, make sure you get that ESA approval just for your own safety. 1 hour of charge gets you about 30 kilometers, so it's quite a bit faster than level 1, and that's why so many people do it. And finally, level 3 can get you around 250 kilometers with an hour. Most people will just stop for half an hour and get a quick charge up to 70% or so and can carry on. But of course, these are the ones you typically would only use these quick chargers on a road trip or you're somewhere that's far. We've got another question about what percentage would you lose of the battery, would you lose in the winter? It really varies from car to car. And of course, the older models tend to lose more than the newer models because they've improved the insulation or the way that they manage the battery and all that. So what I would say is you're probably on the very worst day of the year, like a -30 day, a terrible day, you might lose as much as 40 to 45%. Now, you may not lose that much, but it's good to just assume, and just to make it simple, assume 50% on the worst possible day so that you know the battery is going to be enough for you, even on the worst day of the year. Typically, like if it's a -10 day or -5 day, you don't notice nearly as significant of a drop. It's really only very significant at the very, very coldest temperatures, -20 and worse. So it's really important to sort of maybe assume the worst scenario, and then also to remember, even with that worst case scenario, that's only going to be a few times a year. So you got to think about what your use pattern is and how important it is to you. Someone's asking, not too much info out there about upgrading battery from old to new. Is this possible? Yes, it is possible. It really varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. I know that some of them are available, refurbished batteries are available to be put in. For the most part, we're not seeing a lot of this happening because the batteries are lasting so well. So maybe that's why you can't find that much information about it. We aren't seeing a lot of need for people to do this. So I think there was a recent study that came out, I'm pretty sure it's on Fleet Karma's website, that showed actually the batteries are lasting much longer than anybody thought they would. And that's probably why you're not seeing people replace them. I mean, why would they if they don't really have to, right? So hopefully that's helpful. Oh, and I already mentioned Charge My Car. That's our website where we sell home chargers. So if you do want to go to a level 2 charger, that sort of equivalent of the dryer plug, we have all the different makes and model of home charger available on our website. And the great thing about buying it through us, of course, is that you're supporting our educational efforts in doing that. The site also allows you to compare the features of all the different chargers, and we also have an 800 number on there so that if you have questions, you can call. You might need one with a long cord because you have a long driveway, or you want a smart one because you want to be able to program it, or depending on which vehicle you are buying, you might want a different amperage and all these issues. So we can help you with that. So if you're thinking about that, please do visit chargemycar.ca. As I mentioned with the installation, it isn't rocket science. Any electrician can do it. We do have folks that we can recommend to you if you're not sure, folks who have done lots of EV chargers before, but to be honest, any electrician can do it. And as I mentioned, the ESA does require a safety check on that once it's done, and you need to do that. So we do recommend you use an electrician for these kinds of things. Approximately how much does it cost to charge on a level 3? Well, that is a little bit of a trick question because it really depends. There's quite a lot of different level 3 chargers out there, but I would tell you on average it's about 20 bucks for an hour, but most people are only charging for half an hour, so it would be about 10 bucks. And it varies. Some you pay by the minute, some you pay just for the time, some you pay by the amount of electricity you're taking, and so it really varies. And of course, a level 2, a lot of level 2s out on the road, if it's not your own one, sometimes they're free, or sometimes they're more like in the ballpark of $1 an hour or $2 for a session, quite cheap on level 2. You'll be surprised how many chargers are out there on the road. They're actually everywhere. It might be that you just haven't looked for them before because, of course, they're a small box behind a building or in an underground parking lot. They're not all over like with a giant neon sign like you would see with a gas station. So if you have a certain trip you like to do frequently, it's great to look at some of these websites to kind of plan out your trip. You can find all the chargers that are available on sites like PlugShare and Charge Hub. And the EV Trip Planner type route, that's a way for you to plan out a new place you're going, and it'll tell you where the chargers you should use on your route, what would be the most efficient, effective places to stop. So great opportunities to learn about what public charging is out there. And I'll just sum it up by saying probably a lot more than you think. I've done a lot of road trips with my EV, and I've been able to find chargers all over the place. And so it's not a significant concern. It shouldn't be something that makes you worry that you can't choose an EV unless you're traveling extremely remote. And you go into the extremely remote parts of the province, and yes, you'll have a really hard time finding a charger, but you can always plug in on 110 in those situations. So of course, we always recommend you take a look at it in advance, you plan it out, and that's going to make your trip much more enjoyable. And now there's so many options for public charging compared to even just a few years ago. Now you have, in addition to the main networks that are on the roads, which are ChargePoint and Flow, we're seeing more and more gas stations getting into the game. Petro-Canada is building a network across Canada, same with Shell. We see Quebec's electric circuit moving into Ontario, and now we have Volkswagen behind Electrify Canada putting chargers in all sorts of locations. So you see more and more options. And that's why when you ask the question about level 3 charging, that's why it's so varied, because there are a lot of different organizations putting out level 3 chargers. Okay, now what you're all waiting to find out about, which is the incentive. So as I'm sure you've heard, this is a partnership that Plug and Drive has made with an organization called Clean Air Partnership. And this funding is being provided by the Mike Brigham Foundation. And so we're very grateful to Mike Brigham, who is the funder of this incentive program. So how do you qualify? Well, you take this seminar course, but which vehicles qualify and how does it work? There's, of course, a lot more detail on our website, but we'll cover the $1,000 for any fully electric or plug-in hybrid that was purchased after we started the program, which is April 14th of 2019. The resale price of the vehicle has to be below $50,000. That's the used price, not the new price. We don't care where you bought the vehicle. You can buy it anywhere. You could buy it in Quebec where there's more. You can buy it in the States. You can get it from anywhere, but ultimately you have to register and insure it here in Ontario. And you must make your claim for the incentive within 1 year from today. Now that is the maximum. What I will tell you though is we are working away at these incentives and the money won't last forever. So what I would strongly recommend is the 1 year is just a guideline. We've always said that we were only funding this as long as the money lasts. So we recommend you don't wait. We do process these first come, first serve. It gets date stamped when you submit your information. And so I would recommend you pursue it as quickly as you can. We understand that right now with social distancing, it's not easy to go out and test drive cars, but the good news is most people are not doing that. So, there is a little bit of a hiatus happening right now, but we are still receiving applications. And as I said, we will process them first come, first serve. So we have about 80 incentives left right now. And so don't wait. And of course, just want to make sure you folks all know about the additional incentive we have running right now, which is stacked on top of the used EV incentive. If you scrap an old gas or diesel car that you currently own, you can get an additional $1,000. Now, we do not give you $1,000 to scrap a gas car if you do not buy a used EV. It needs to be both. So you're both scrapping a gas car and buying a used EV, you get $2,000. And we've outlined here on this slide how you go about doing that. You have to visit Car Heaven, and then you click on donate your vehicle. You'll see plug and drive scrappage in the list. You have to input a bunch of your information, but it's quite an easy process. They'll come and get your vehicle from home. There are some requirements in terms of the condition of your vehicle, so just please check it out if you're interested in that. So I'm hoping people will take advantage of that opportunity. I see another question has just come in. I'm leasing a hybrid and plan to buy it out. Do I qualify? No, that's already owned by you. And also a hybrid does not qualify for our program unless you mean a plug-in hybrid. We're not providing incentives on hybrids, just plug-in hybrids are full electrics. So next slide. So how do you get your incentive? So of course, in the past, we've said you had to do an EV test drive in order to qualify. We're right during this particular time, we are waiving that requirement. So you just have to take this seminar. Of course, I really hope you will test drive the EV that you are looking at, and I'm sure you will. Once you have taken the seminar, of course, we have your email, and you will get a certificate that has a unique code. And then when you go to, you bought your vehicle, you're going to send a copy of your certificate that we sent you, the bill of sale, the vehicle registration, and evidence of your insurance to our very specific email address here, usedvincentive@pluganddrive.ca. All these requirements are on our website. It's quite easy to do. We just want to let you know right now claims are taking 6 to 8 weeks to process, which means you won't get your incentive till June at the earliest. We apologize for a little bit of a delay, but of course, like everyone during these difficult times, we also are short-staffed and working from home, so it's not as easy as it once was. So we will get it to you, but it'll be after the beginning of June. Another question, how much will my electricity bill increase? Well, again, it will depend on how much you drive, so that will affect how much you charge, and also how large the battery of your vehicle is. But what we have found is that on average, people are saying they're paying about an additional 20 to 30 bucks a month on average. But if you have a specific question about your own driving habits, that's something that the folks at Plug and Drive can help you figure out. Also, another question, can I comment on getting a home charger at a condo? Yes. So it can be very difficult to get a charger at a condo, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we do have a guide on our website called Make Your Condo EV Ready, and it goes through all the ins and outs of how to try to get a home charger at a condo. If you're in this situation, please take a look at the guide, and if you have further questions, you can follow up with us. Hopefully that guide will walk you through everything you need to know about getting a home charger at your condo building. Okay, so we are not for profit, as I think you folks would all know, and I just would be remiss if I did not thank our sponsors for helping us do all the work that we do. And we really couldn't do it without them, and so we do appreciate their support very, very much. And of course, again, to thank Clean Air Partnership and the Mike Brigham Foundation, who are making this incentive program possible. So I see now we have time for questions, and I see there are a few more questions in the chat already. So let me just get to those. What about greenhouse gas emissions from manufacturing? Yes, so the truth is EVs do create more greenhouse gases in the manufacturing than a gas car. And that's just because it's kind of energy intensive to make the battery, and also because they're not making as many of them. So there aren't the same kind of economies of scale. But even so, when you do the life cycle assessment, which by that I mean the entire total of greenhouse gas emissions, what you find is most of the emissions for a car come from the driving, not from the manufacturing. So every life cycle assessment that has been done has shown that an EV reduces emissions, by far reduces emissions over a gas car, despite the fact that there are more greenhouse gas emissions from the manufacturing of the vehicle. Hope that answers your question. What is the GHG payoff period? Now, I'm not really sure what that means. Maybe what you meant was the savings payoff, which would be typically in like 3 to 5 years of owning the car. Let's say you paid like $5,000 more for the vehicle than the equivalent gas car would be. Typically, what we have seen is that if you find a good comparator car that's got similar features and all that, you might pay as much as $10,000 more for a new, I'm talking new, EV, and then right now there's a $5,000 incentive. So let's say there's a gap of about 5,000 bucks. And that typically gets paid down in 3 to 5 years of ownership, depending on how much you drive. And so typically a very good investment. Now on a used, it's even better because you've already, really, you're not paying much of a premium on the vehicle at all. So you're just kind of right in the money for savings almost immediately. I'm going to give it a few more minutes for more questions. So we got a question here about 80 incentives less. How many are we giving out per month during COVID? Well, this has really been the first month, and I can tell you we're still receiving them, although not in the same flow that we were. But during this month, we did give out about 30. So I guess you can assume maybe about 30 a month. So that just gives us a couple more months of money right now. So it depends. It depends. I mean, if people, I think some of the people who submitted last month might have already been waiting or had already test driven the vehicle and stuff prior to COVID kind of setting in. So hard to say what it will be going forward. It might be a little bit less. But all this to say, I wouldn't mess around. All right, I'm not seeing any more right now. I won't hang up yet. I'll wait a few more minutes. Just wrap up by thanking you very much for joining us today at the end of the day, and hope that it's been helpful to you. If you do have questions, you can contact us at this email address, usedvincentive@pluganddrive.ca. You can also call the office, but of course we're not in the office right now, but we will get to your messages. It might not be as quick turnaround as it might have been, but please be patient. We will get back to you. And with that, I guess we're done with questions. So thank you so much. Oh, just got one more. Sometimes it takes a second for them to go through. If I buy in Quebec, do I qualify for their provincial incentive? If you live in Ontario, you cannot get the Quebec incentive. You have to be a resident of Quebec to benefit from their program, but you can still get our used incentive here if you buy it there. That's all I can tell you. But yeah, provincial incentives apply only to people who have a home in that province. Okay, well, once again, thank you so much for your time today. Follow up with us if you have further questions, and enjoy your EV when you get it. You're going to love it, and we look forward to having you as part of our EV Owners Club in the future. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.